Hello and welcome everybody. Janet Beckers here with Romance Your Tribe Radio, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my wonderful guest today. Kevin Breeding is one of my favorite people in the world. Kevin and I have spent quite a bit of time over the last year masterminding in business, and the thing that I absolutely love about Kevin is this is a man who has an incredibly strategic mind, a man who makes big impacts in a lot of businesses and a lot of big businesses, and yet he has the most humble, most non-judgmental and absolute true interest and curiosity for every single person, no matter where they are in their business. So I'm really excited to bring the way that Kevin thinks, and also some really great strategies that he uses and that he has used with me to help me with my rebranding in my business. So hello, Kevin.
Hey, Janet, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation and an honor. I've been looking forward to this for days now, so I'm glad it's finally here.
That's fantastic. So one of the biggest challenges that I have with the Romance Your Tribe Radio podcast is I try to keep things as tight as we can so that people can get maximum value in the shortest time that we can give. Now, I know that you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours because we have. Yeah. So to cut straight to the chase, can you share with us who it is that you serve and how do you do that?
Sure. I am all about coming alongside entrepreneurs and leaders who are looking to scale their business quickly. Mm-hmm. They realize that they're going to have to do some internal work to do that. And third, that they see their business as a vehicle to do something greater in the world. It's not just about the money.
I love that.
And how I do that is very simply. It's through a series of interactions in a coaching model, and that ranges from one-on-one through group models all the way down to kind of self-guided courses that I've taken hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs now through, just to help unlock some of the roadblocks and the things that all of us deal with. So I'm in the roadblock busting business. That's what I do.
The roadblock busting business. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So Kevin and I were talking about, there's so many, Kevin has this amazing toolkit that he has developed from years of experience to help different people through those roadblocks. And one of the ones that I've had personal experience with is the 5-step process. So I thought we could talk a bit about the 5-step process and share some examples about how you've been using that recently, because there's some pretty exciting stories happening in Kevin's business at the moment. So to start with the 5-step process, can you explain what actually led to the 5-step process? Like, why is there a need for the process that we're going to cover today?
Sure. The interesting thing about 5-step and why I think it's an important tool is I realized early on in kind of rebuilding my life, I'd gone through a bankruptcy and a divorce all within a 6-month period, and it just it absolutely was catastrophic. Just it not only took away financial gain and relationships and things like that, but I didn't realize at the time the damage that it did to me both intellectually and creatively. As I would start to do new ventures, I didn't know at the time that I was locked up inside, and I didn't have that freedom. It's funny. Tony Robbins always says that we have to remember that our brains are wired for survival, not for creative thinking. And so we're constantly thinking of what's going to go wrong. And so something like 5-step framework allows you a model that in the midst of chaos, both good chaos and bad chaos, to be able to say, wait a minute, everybody take a breath. I know that there's a thought process that I can put myself through, and allows us to take emotion out of what could be a challenging circumstance, and you just work your way right through a model to say, okay, what about this? Is it this or that? Is it A or B? Is it 1 or 2? And then it helps me kind of know, okay, I have a trusted, proven way to identify roadblocks, even when you don't see them there in the first place. Yeah. And then 2, how do you move them quickly to where all of a sudden it gives you confidence as well as a structure that says, oh, okay, this is no big deal. let me apply that framework. And as you mentioned, I've seen this happen, and we can get into that example here in a little bit about exactly how the framework works.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if it's helpful, but there's 5 pieces to it.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I started out in a 5-day model, but I realize entrepreneurs and leaders like you and me, we don't always work in structured time. And so we do it in 5 steps. They are quite simply imagine, illustrate, indicate, integrate, and implement. And just the kind of 2-second version of each one.
I love this, iteration. Oh, there's another I. Yeah.
Yeah, it always is. Imagine is all about brainstorming, and we all know how to do that. And we have different models and methods. I use mind mapping, and I remember you and I had a fantastic mind mapping session. But the second one is probably where it would be most useful for our group listening today is on illustrate, and we'll come back to that, where you're literally developing each idea more. Indicates where you actually make your choice. Integrate is where you look at the impact of that choice all the way through your personal life, your business, your team, your systems, all of that. And then the implement phase, which is how do you physically bring it to real life. And I love this quote, and I'm gonna brag on you a little bit, because you have given me the branding name that has resonated for people who go through 5-step. You said to me, this process is deceptively simple and incredibly powerful. And as soon as I use that quote from you, people go, oh, wow, this really does feel too simple to do all the things that you say it does. And every person that goes through it just simply says, wow, I didn't think it would do what it does. And you just nailed it. And so you've actually given me the byline of the process. So thank you.
There you go. I'll take claim to that. Because it is, I can remember when, when you first introduced me to the process we were going to work through, I thought, oh yeah, I got that. Yeah. Slight bit of arrogance there. And it wasn't until we were working through it that I thought, oh, actually, this is really, I've skimmed a lot of things that we actually dived into deeper. But before we go a little bit further into the process, can we just backtrack a little tiny bit? Because I'm just thinking, you talked about how during times of chaos or indecision, that this takes the emotion out. It gives you a chance to be able to step back and have a logical process. And I thought we could talk about a few example scenarios there, because one that I see, so much, and I would be very surprised if anybody listening today cannot nod their head when I say this, is as entrepreneurs, there are so many ways to be right. And we're always bombarded with, you should be doing podcasts. No, you should be doing video. No, you should be doing workshops. You should be doing just ebooks. There's all these different ways to be right. And there's always, it's without fail that there is this sense of overwhelm, because we have this fear of, like FOMO, your fear of missing out. If I focus on this, I'm losing this opportunity. So I know that this is one particular scenario that a lot of people will have at numerous times throughout their business when trying to make that decision, because everybody is screaming at them the way they should be doing things. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at some different examples of when you've used this process either with yourself or with some of your clients that you work with.
Yeah, thank you for that. One, I have to go back to what it did for me personally, because I wouldn't believe it unless I'd gone through it and did. This came out of what was a point where I wasn't sure that I had the ability to kind of get back into the entrepreneurial game. I was, like we all do from time to time, I was ready to say, fine, I'm just going to go get a job and go be somebody else's problem. And I realized that that's not who I am and not what I'm about, but I didn't know how to begin the method and the process. Now, whenever I experienced it the first time, I was just journaling. I didn't know it was a 5-step, a 5-step framework, because I was creating it at the time. And so one, it comes personally from me, but probably the most powerful illustration that I've seen of something like this working. And I want to make sure to say to everybody that's listening, it's not just the 5-step framework, which I'm a huge fan of, obviously, but it's that we have to, as entrepreneurs, do the hard work and do the prep and have systems and frameworks. Because what happens is, if we don't have some sort of model, either massive success or something catastrophic happens, and all of a sudden we get devastated and we don't know what to do. What
Yeah.
happens is our brain kind of goes into survival mode. We're into fight or flight. And it's actually one of the things that I talk about is we start to experience what's called progressive cognitive atrophy. And it's where every time we try to fix something, we think our way through it and we can't, we're frustrated, we back off from it, and it becomes that much harder to fix it the next time.
Yeah.
And so it's now that's a fancy, progressive cognitive atrophy is a fancy way to say we psych ourselves out. Yeah.
What was it? You said another way of saying, what was it? Sorry?
We psych ourselves out. It's
Right.
we tell ourselves that the wall is that much bigger, and in actuality, it's not any bigger. It's just that we've made it harder because we think we've exhausted a process. So frameworks like this work, and I can give you an example that I am living in right this very second. Have one of my very dear friends and a client, Dr. Rick Rigsby, who has had there's a viral video that since October the 5th has been viewed more than 120 million times.
Wow.
And so he's gone from, a stage platform speaker and an author to now being pursued by A&E Network, by NBC, being invited onto Good Morning America, book publishers coming at him from left and right. And as entrepreneurs, we're going to look at that and say, wow, yeah, we want that. That's exactly what we're chasing in our business. And the truth is that kind of exposure can both show how vulnerable you are and can completely leave you paralyzed.
Yeah.
Rick called me and he began to explain what was going on. And one, I couldn't believe it. Two, I went and watched the video and I was like, that's classic Rick. I've known him for a long time. But he was instantly overwhelmed with what to do next because there was so much coming at him.
Yeah, because it wasn't planned, was it? It wasn't as if this was an orchestrated viral video.
No, we did not build the video. This was produced by a media company called Goalcast, who's in the business of creating inspirational, motivational videos. Their Facebook page has 600 million views a month.
Wow.
And we are now the largest viewed video on their platform. And so,
Fantastic.
it's one of those, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Because although we would think it would make our business skyrocket, it can also make your business implode if you don't have models and frameworks that can kind of guide you in the midst of chaos. Because chaos can be good, chaos can be bad.
Yeah. And so... Well, let's have a look. So what was the name of the video? So if people haven't watched it, they will go and have a look, but there's a good chance that they have seen it.
Yeah, like I said, with the 120 million views, they probably have. The easiest way is if you go to Facebook and just search Rick Rigsby, Rigsby, you'll find it. It'll be the first thing that pops up. It's all over the place and still growing every day. And so it's been a really powerful picture for me. One, because of, I love my friend and I'm excited for him. I'm excited for our business together. But at the same time, it was a great reminder for why I coach the way that I do, is that you want to dream big, but you always come back and do the mechanics. You do the work. It's like going to the gym. In your love, you're not going to get out and swim the distances that you swim without being in, you've got to be in the water doing the reps every day. Otherwise, you just don't have the stamina and something goes wrong and all of a sudden you're in real trouble. And so it's a great reminder for us to be excellent business people as well as, entrepreneurs full of vision that just go, fly by the seat of our pants.
Yeah. And, and that's one of the frustrations with people who, like us, that help entrepreneurs is there's been so much, rubbish that's been put out about you have the idea and then the money will come, that as soon as you start going, well, there's some boring bits, there's some boring bits and you've actually got to work hard, keep consistent. That's a hard one to sell. But I reckon let's have a look at your process. We were talking about diving into one part of the 5-step process. So let's dive in and we might reflect on what's been happening with you and Rick? Because this is fresh. Like, this is only in the last 2 weeks. Like, you're in the midst right now as we're recording this. So let's reflect on that. And then we can also reflect on that process, because it was that process that actually helped me get clarity on changing my brand completely from Wonderful Web Women over to Romance Your Tribe. So let's look at those two examples, because they're very quite different, and as a way of diving in to part of this 5-step process.
Yeah, it's perfect of the timing of this, because the kind of the aha day for you, as I remember us going through 5-step together, was day 2. It's the Illustrate Day, and it's interesting that as we are talking about this, Rick and I did Illustrate Day this morning, and
did you?
Yeah, I was just I didn't even think about the timing of all this, but it's fortuitous and a cool thing. The day 1 is all about brainstorming, and you're trying to just put every idea you can possibly pick up on the, and just throw it up on the wall and say, okay, what's possible here? But day 2 is where you're looking at each idea and you're trying to boil it down to 3 to 5 that you think have the highest potential to solve whatever your challenge was. And so, in Rick's case, we're looking at, are we looking at live events? Are we looking at a TV show? And if it is a TV show, is it a documentary style, news magazine telling stories, or is it a talk show? And so, it's all of this sort of analysis of ideas. And as I think back to whenever you and I went through Illustrate Day, and I'd say just the way it works for everybody that's listening is Illustrate Day is you take your 3 to 5, sort of what we call our finalist ideas, and we take them one at a time, put it in the middle of the table, and we say, okay, all of a sudden, we pretend this is our only option that we have left. And we're going to take the other 4 and set them aside. And for a moment, we're going to assume that they will not work. We have to make this idea, the one that we are talking about at the moment, work. And we take 10, 15, 20 minutes and sort of develop it out and let it sort of blossom into a full-fledged idea with great things. Now, I will tell you, sometimes looking at the 3 to 5, that one of them will instantly sort of wither away. And as we think about it and let it sort of expose a bit, we'll realize that it's not as good of an idea as we thought, that there's something about it that doesn't really work. But the beauty of what an Illustrate Day does in 5-step is one of these, you do your first one and you'll set it aside, and you take number 2 and you'll do the exact same process again. You'll think through as though it's the only one of the 5 that it's going to be your magic bullet. It's your Barney Fife silver bullet in Andy Griffith American parlance there. And so you're trying to figure out which is the best idea and for what reason. And the beauty of it is I remember the day that you and I went through this is the note that I tell people in the process that day is you want these 5 ideas to compete with one another so that you have the potential of having multiple great winning ideas that are competing for your final choice, which happens on session 3. And I remember you said to me that whenever you did that, one, it gave you freedom that you didn't have to make a decision that day in that minute, so you could just think creatively and strategically. But then it also gave you the confidence that you're making a great decision because you're giving it the ability to breathe and show itself to be the best idea. And here again, it sounds so simple, but I've seen it hundreds of times now be incredibly powerful to let people kind of be opened up and say, I can make this decision with confidence because now I know I've thought my way through it strategically and systemically.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can remember that process, because it made me realize that I have tended to fast track some parts of it, because like a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like, let's just get this stuff done. Like, let's not spend so long thinking and going down all these paths. And so sometimes you'll go with, this seems like the right option, and then you'll go down that whole path. Because I've used the process I did with you, and then I've used that thing again with the next step. So for me, I was trying to make the decision of, do I go back to the future? Do I make Wonderful Web Women very much all about women again? And because I had generalized out from there, do I go back to that? Do I totally rebrand and everything is Janet Beckers? Is it going to be janetbeckers.com, everything Janet Beckers? Or do I let the Romance Your Tribe system become the hero? And so, but the three of those would all work.
Mm-hmm.
All of them would work really well. And so I reckon I was in a state of flux for about a year.
Yeah.
Trying to make this decision, and every time it went straight back to, what was the fancy term that you had, Kevin, about my
You went back to progressive cognitive atrophy.
yes, that atrophy was setting in, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can actually remember when we went through this process and then I came back to you, when I realized that the one that I had always defaulted back to, which was going back to Wonderful Weird Women, was the one that was not going to work. And actually, I had a grieving process.
I remember you said to me, it's like choosing one of your children.
It was exactly.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that I love about a framework model. And here again, it doesn't have to be this one. I'm saying this about any framework model that you can plug into your business and plug into how you are building out your tribe, is that it, in the midst of confusion where our emotions can taint the logic and the decision-making process, you want to go back to that which you know has served you well before. And so, I'm a visionary guy, and I like to go do things and kind of wander off and explore. I'm an explorer archetype by wiring, but I know that
same here.
I love it. But I've figured out that explorers sometimes can go with our gut, and our gut sometimes is jaded by what we're comfortable with or by what we know versus what we don't. Yeah. And so we end up sort of defaulting and sometimes maybe even settling. And so a framework like this gives you the freedom to say, you know what, I've thought it through well. I have good reason to make this decision, and it doesn't take long. In fact, I mean, you've done it now enough to where it starts to become second nature. You can take a few minutes and really kind of work through, how do I look at this objectively to be able to say, this is the best and the most right and the most on brand decision I can make.
Yeah. And I think an important part for us entrepreneurs is, say if you've got 3 to 5, is giving each one an even chance to win. Mm-hmm. And quite often we'll go down one and we'll go, well, actually I've nailed it, that's going to work. And so you'll tend to not pay attention. So giving yourself that freedom and that permission to take the time and really focus on each one equally. And I like the idea that they were a competition. So, and I've used that since then. Once I made the decision that it was romance your tribe, with my social media being Janet Beckers, is then I looked at, now when it comes down to what am I going to be doing for my content, what's going to be the best for that brand and the best for my tribe. And you're seeing the result. It was the podcast. Because one of the things that I recognized through that process that I wasn't doing, that I absolutely loved, was interviewing people and talking to people like you, Kevin. So it's a great process to be able to work through. So I think as a way of kind of wrapping up, let's do a little bit of a loop, because we've seen what the result was when I worked through the process. We've looked at the change in the brand, and then we've also looked at the making the decision on the content marketing plan. So for you, I know that you're right in the middle now of this one client.
Yes.
And you have numerous clients. So for you, I'm curious about, you've gone through now the imagining stage, but you've got the next stage to go through. So so what's going to happen next in the life of Kevin?
Well, the right answer this very moment is I'm not completely sure. Yeah. But the beauty is I have complete confidence in the process. Because what's happening is, what was a friendship that turned into a client is now turning into media opportunities for me and a lot of exposure. I mean, Rick just the other night on one of his Facebook Lives talked about his personal coach and his business coach, and how, had he not had that relationship in place, he'd been curled up in the corner. and has called me very, very quickly in moments when he was up against going on and doing a live moment where he was like, I'm not sure what to say. And it was just a good picture that, we all go through those challenges and thoughts. And so just by him mentioning me in one of his Facebook Lives, I had this influx of people come over and start to look at my page.
Right.
And it goes back to when you have exposure that we all desire and want in our business, you have to have a method and a process to be able to think your way through it. So what's happening for me is, the good news is the business is growing. The question is, do I go into a more public sort of taking a front role and being that thought leader, or do I stay in the coaching model where I'm sort of the visionary and sort of the wizard behind the drape that's helping them craft the way a story gets told? And that's right where I'm at. I'm in the middle of step 3 of the 5, which is where I'm trying to indicate which one that's going to be. And I the only thing I can tell you is, as soon as I know, you're going to be the first to know, because I'm at a spot where I don't have to make a decision today, which I'm happy about, but I'm also really weighing what fits me as a brand, what do I enjoy doing that can be most impactful to my tribe and even my eventual tribe, and then also what can do the most good. Because I go back to the people that I serve. They want to grow quickly. They want to they know that they have to do internal work to do that done, and they want to do something bigger than just make money.
Yeah.
That's me. And not everybody's true about this, but I am my own consumer. And so the reason why it works for me is because I'm making a decision now to figure out, where's the greatest impact? Is it in helping leaders move to that level, or do I step into that role myself while also helping leaders do that? And so that's where I'm at.
And
I'm anxious to see what the outcome is going to be, because I don't know.
Yeah, and by the time that we go live with this, we may know the results. So, I just love, I think that's a beautiful note for us to end on, because I love how you brought this back to your tribe and to what your core values are, which is how your tribe knows if they belong hanging around with you as the leader. And you're just such a beautiful demonstration of what a tribal leader looks like, and that tribal leader is around clarity and being able to say, this is what we believe around here. And you've just done that so beautifully and clearly there at the end. So I'm very excited to to see what happens next, and I know whichever one it's going to be, Kevin is going to do it with absolute brilliance and a sense of fun. So thank you so much for your time, Kevin. I'm really excited to have introduced you to my tribe. Now, for people to be able to connect with you more, to get more information on the sort of frameworks that you do, what's the best place for people to go?
I'm an easy date on this one. The easiest one is just to go to my website, kevinbreeding.com, and right there on the front page, there's an ebook called Mastering Mindset, and it starts the conversation around the 5-step process. It's also the notes of about 15 interviews that I did with some of the top entrepreneurs across multiple industries, and so it'd be a super handy tool for everybody to come over and grab, and I'd love for them to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you, everybody that's been here listening. Thank you so much for your time. And one of the things that I do encourage you to do is, Kevin's been incredibly generous with his time and, his transparency today. And one of the most rewarding things for us is to hear back from you. What do you get out of that? So I really do encourage you to hunt this man down. So either, when you're going and you've joined his mailing list, or whether you're finding him on Facebook, is just go and connect and tell him, at least one aha that you have got from today. That is one of the greatest gifts that you can give. Okay.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Bye, everybody.